Be able to see it there. Okay, so with that, let me get that intro, like I said, out of the way, and all right, we can let her rip. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. And today it's time for an exclusive conversation and interview with the one and only rapper and songwriter, Mr. Denzel Curry. His brand new LP, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, is out now. I'm still admittedly digesting it. We could talk about thoughts on the record so far, early on, but what I have gathered so far, I do want to ask you about. But before we dig into any details on the album, let me ask you, how are you doing? How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for asking. Most people are rude these days. They don't ask people how they doing. They just ask for, hey, can I get a picture? And it's just like, all right, cool. But I'm human, bro. You know what I mean? So thank you for asking.
Well, we've met before and we've had some personal conversations back and forth in the past. And,
Right.
You've told me a lot of stuff that you've sort of overcome and had to go through to get to where you are now. So, I am personally interested in that, but it seems like you're really kind of laying a lot of that out with this record too, as far as like the lyrical content goes, as I'm digging further and further into it. But again, before we kind of get into any of the details of that, what would you say from like a pulled back, a large perspective, like what did you set out to accomplish on this record that maybe you felt like you didn't accomplish, or just kind of either change the pace from either Taboo or any of your previous records?
Well, you know how majority of the records that I've done over the years, right, was to separate myself from the crowd. So when I did Nostalgia 64, everybody was doing underground stuff wasn't as popular as it was then. And then once everybody caught wind of all the underground stuff because it was becoming mainstream, I needed something that was going to separate myself from just that. You get what I'm saying? Everything that I was doing in Raider Clan at the time. So when I came up with Nostalgic, that was supposed to separate me from all the Raider Clan stuff. And then when I did 327 Planet of Shrooms, that was supposed to separate me, but also be a continuation of what I was already doing on Nostalgic, you know what I'm saying? And really experimenting and trying new things. And then, obviously after your review, I was just like, damn, I felt like I failed. And a lot of people didn't like it when it came out. So when I did Imperial, that was like all that frustration and anger, which ended up becoming my sound for a while. You know what I'm saying? And that was supposed to be to separate me from that project. So every project that I've done was supposed to separate me from my last project or from what everybody was doing. But when I specifically did this project, I wanted to, separate myself from what I did on Taboo already, because people already got that. Why would I give them 10 projects of Taboo and Imperial? That made no sense to me. You know what I'm saying? An artist should be able to grow and do different things. That's the whole point of being an artist, because when Picasso first started, he was doing regular portraits, but any other artist that's good at what they do would do a regular portrait. So then he moves on to cubism. You get what I'm saying? So in a way, this is my cubism. I'm separating myself from myself, because it seems like when it comes down to fans, fans think they know me better than me. You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you? You know what I mean?
No, it does. It does make sense.
Denzel Curry supposed to sound like this, and Denzel Curry only yells. Denzel Curry is only aggressive. He's only this. They try to put me in this box. You can't define what Denzel Curry does if you're not fucking Denzel Curry. Period.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I get that sense too, because I've been seeing a lot of reactions to the record, even positive ones, where it seems like the word I'm hearing come up over and over again. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but the comment I'm hearing a lot is mature. Oh, it's a mature record. It's a more mature. It's an album full of maturity. But then, as I'm kind of hearing that over and over, I'm thinking and mind you, again, there's still more about the album I have to dig into. But thinking back to the conceptuality of Taboo, or even some of the very personal and topical tracks on Nostalgic 64, you've always come across to me as a very thoughtful, hardworking, conceptual kind of guy. You know what I mean? I hear that continue onto this new record, but to see that kind of getting brought up again and again and again, in reaction to the new record, makes me wonder if people have sort of noticed those qualities about your works before.
No, because when it came down to my works before, Like with Nostalgic, it was just me speaking from a place as a teenager and what I was going through then.
Sure.
So I look at what I was doing as chapters of my life. So Nostalgia 64 was my teenage chapter. Everything that was happening in Raider Clan when I was going through it with them, all the stuff that I was getting into in South Florida, the Trayvon Martin stuff that really played a role within my life because he went to Carrot City and I was going to Carrot City at the time. But, you know, the march and everything that was happening. So that was just a part of my life. I just had to document it. All the things that I've been doing was just documenting things that was happening already. So when it comes down to this record, I was documenting more so of how I felt as opposed to what I was thinking. Because when I first started this project, it was more so of, if I feel it, I fuck with it. But if I don't feel it, I'm not going to waste my time with it. And all these tracks were strategically picked because I felt them and then I played them and then everybody else felt them that was around me. You know, there was not one track that they didn't feel. And if it did get to that point, I would just take it out. You know what I'm saying? I'll just take it out, go back to the drawing board and see what else I could come up with. You know, and the reason why you get maturity on this record, because I wasn't able to articulate my thoughts and my feelings the right way. It always came out brash because I would bottle it up. And once I would bottle it up, it would end up having tracks like Black Metal Terrorist or something like ULT. I would have all these feelings, but I wouldn't know how to talk to people about it. And this one, I was able to talk to people about my feelings as opposed to yelling at them for attention. I got your attention by yelling. I don't need to yell anymore. I'm just telling you, like, this is what I'm going through as a human being. And even when it comes down to the writing, if you want to talk about the writing on Taboo as opposed to this, the writing on Taboo, when you hear the first track, you know, that was my trauma, but I disguised it with a story about a girl, which was named Taboo. When you get to Melt Session 1 on here, I'm putting it all out. I'm just giving it all on the table. Like, this is what I'm going through currently. I finally have the balls to say it, and I finally found a way to say it to you without it being shouted at you.
So, you know, you're talking about this, you know, new mode of like getting a point across in your music. And you're also talking about looking at your records, defining certain parts of your life in chapters. Like outside of this, you know, new mode of delivering what you're trying to say, what would you say is, and I have my own conceptions of this given what I've heard of the record so far, but, you know, to hear it from your own mouth, what, you know, is currently defining this era in your life that is, you know, attached to this record in your opinion?
Well, it was more so of growing and learning. Like majority of the stuff I learned, you know what I'm saying, over time for the past 2 or 3 years ended up on this record because those were hard lessons that I had to learn. And those were like things that I had to see. All the things that I seen and all the things that I learned about myself and then about society, I had to put into this record because that's what was my environment. You were a product of your choices and your environment. You know what I'm saying? But once your environment is no longer a factor, it's all about your choices. So I chose to write about all the choices, good and bad choices I made. You know what I'm saying? With people I lost within my life, which is like friends, family, whether they died or we're just not friends anymore. I chose to talk about things that was already happening, like in the last, like I was talking about COVID. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to give you a sick ass bar about COVID. That's corny. I gave you what I seen and how it affected people like during quarantine, during lockdown, you know? So I was just pretty much taking all the problems of the world and my surroundings and also the stuff that I was going through. It was just like a stack of stuff, you know what I'm saying? It was just like a stack of things that I already had to deal with on the inside and then another stack of things that I had to deal with on the outside. And I just compiled it into one project because I know not many people, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people go through a lot of different things in life. You know what I'm saying? We all go through troubles. We all go through shortcomings. And I just didn't want to make a hyper track about anything, about all this stuff. I wanted to give the stuff that I always liked to do. Like before I was making this type of music, before I was making aggressive music, this was the type of music I wanted to always make because my favorite rap artists, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lupe Fiasco, like all these guys that I liked at the time was talking about things. You know what I'm saying? And in order to have that knowledge, I would have to learn. I have to learn about the musicality of things. I have to learn about these things. Everything wasn't just always turned up dark underground. Like I wanted different sounds because I was experiencing different emotions.
There's, to kind of jump into this since you opened it up a little bit, like a lot of the production on the record has, as you were kind of saying, with those artists that you're referencing there, I mean, given the time period at which you probably were exposed to a lot of them, there's almost like maybe an unintentionally nostalgic factor to a lot of the, instrumental aesthetics across the record. Like, is that something that ended up being just kind of a coincidence of that being sort of like the stuff that you grew up listening to, or were you consciously like, trying to get in touch with a certain era here as you were kind of pulling the production together for this?
Okay, so when it came down to like the production and stuff like that for Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, I wrote Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, not the lyrics or anything like that. I wrote the plan to make this album in 2018 after I did Taboo. This was supposed to be the album that was supposed to come out after, but you got Zoo and you got Unlocked because I wasn't going through those particular things and didn't have the emotional intelligence to talk about it. So when I was doing these records, let me go through my phone real quick. And I could literally tell you everything that I wrote, the genres that I wanted to do in a second. Here we go. So the genres that I wanted to do. Can you see me still?
I can't see you right now, but tell me the notes that you have. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So acid jazz, trip hop, R&B, jazz, boom bap, drum and bass, jungle, funk, neo soul, dancehall, punk, and synth pop. Those were the genres that I wanted for this album, and I wrote this in September 2nd, 2018 at 1:36 p.m.
So yeah,
that's where it started.
So the plan has been in motion long before.
Yeah, it was in motion long before. I planned this album several times. Even when it came down to this the track Zatoichi, I had mock-up names for tracks, and I would just write tracks names and do like, track listings and just make up names for tracks. Zatoichi is the only one that made it as an actual name for the actual album.
Well, I mean, you bring up that track. Let's dig into that one just a little bit. Just in terms of like the point of inspiration there, because I'm sure a lot of people know now that the song has been released that like, that name comes from a fictional character that's been, sort of the star and focus of a lot of media in Japan, be it television or movies or books. And, I mean, was there something specifically about that character that kind of, impacted you about their struggle and their progression that you sort of saw parallel to your own?
It was just somebody that was blind leading people and cutting away at, all these adversaries that would come his way. You get what I'm saying? Just still walking his path. And I just felt like my grandma always used to tell me the blind can't lead the blind. Like Stevie Wonder cannot lead Ray Charles. You feel me? I never got that analogy, but when it comes down to awareness and just everything in general, like the blind literally cannot lead the blind. Like if you don't know enough stuff, how can you tell somebody else what to do? If you're not living your life right, how can you tell somebody else to live their life right? You get what I'm saying? So, and then when it comes down to being a famous or celebrity or whatever, we have this whole thing of like the blind leading the blind. I'm even guilty of that. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I'd be like, oh, I'm this person, I'm that, and they're gonna follow me. You're like, I want you guys to follow me, but I don't even know where I'm going because my path is different than everybody else's. How can I tell somebody to follow me and I don't even know where I'm going?
Right. So this record in a way is like, again, you've put out records in the past where you give your perspective on things, or maybe in a way like make philosophical prescriptions on certain stuff. But like, still at that point, you felt like you still hadn't had things figured out, and this record and this chapter that you're talking about in your life was in a way your way of rectifying that. Now, now that we're on kind of like the other side of the album being released and we're through this chapter or through a progression of it, like, do you feel like you have a better sense of where you're going or what you're doing or what you want to do? Or do you feel like you're still kind of like in motion there?
Well, my main thing is my music is supposed to help people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we could have fun to it. Yeah, we could turn up, but I always put substance and a message within in my music. maybe not so much as like unlocked, because that was just a fun project that I just wanted to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
And
that's
Zoo
fine
was
too.
spawned out of homesickness,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So Zoo was basically me missing my hometown. So I made a tribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to my music in general is supposed to help people. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was supposed to be like this lit rapper, like this person that like get money, get hoes, get clothes, all that shit. Now I'm just like, dude, that don't mean nothing. Like my soul is more important than any of that shit.
You know,
So my music is to like really heal people and help people. And if they're struggling with something that they can't tell their friends, that they can't tell they parents, that they can't tell their siblings, like I'm here. You know what I'm saying? That's my whole point.
mm-hmm. So, you know, let's get into some, you know, lyrics and I guess like ideas on the record that I've been wondering about, like, you know, especially off the first track where you're talking about being aware, being the definition of melt. You know, in your own words, like metaphorically, what does it mean for, you know, whatever awareness you're trying to achieve to create this sensation of like your eyes or somebody else's eyes melting? And
The whole melt my eyes concept
yeah.
is like we see a lot of things within society already.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And we choose to avoid it. We
Hmm.
always avoid it. We never want to see it, even when it's dead in our faces. But once you melt your eyes, you become aware. I'm not going to say woke, but you just become aware of things. Once you become aware of things, you can see the truth within society and see the truth within yourself. So basically, melting away your eyes is melting the perception of what society is and what you used to be. You know what I'm saying? And seeing for everything for what it really is. And that's hard to do because, like, even when you melt that perception and see everything what it is, if you know too much, everything gonna seem sad or a drag.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's why they say ignorance is bliss.
Well, that's kind of another one of the things I wanted to ask you after listening to this record. Like, you know, given the awareness that you're bringing on this record and what you're saying you're conscious of, like, is it harder or easier for you past this point to, I mean, obviously, you know, you have a pretty firm view of yourself and you believe in yourself, but like, is it hard to have like hope for the world at large? Or do you just, you know, again, try to continue to focus on yourself more than that?
I mean, if I focus on myself and be able to change myself, then I can worry about the others that's around me. So I really do have hope for the world, but I got to have hope for myself first.
Hmm.
If I don't have hope for myself, I won't have hope for others.
Hmm. And, you know, would you say on top of it that there's like any kind of spiritual progression to this record at all too? You know, like this chapter of your life that you're talking about where you're undergoing these changes and realizations, you know, did this also involve any kind of spiritual awakening or reawakening on your part as well?
I mean, yeah, because my mom will always send me like Bible scriptures, you know? So she would send me stuff from like jw.org because my mom's a Jehovah's Witness, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Even when I grew up in my household, my mom's a Jehovah's Witness, my father's a Baptist, so I got both sides. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, as I grew into an adult, I remember just being like, I believe in God, but fuck religion. Like, I don't believe in religion. But now I'm looking at it like, damn, religion is a base and I need that base. And whatever religion I'm going to go to, that got to be my base of faith. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I could either be a Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, you know what I'm saying? Jehovah's Witness, Baptist, Thessalonian, Methodist, Catholic. I have so many options of what I could pick as my base because I know I believe in a higher power. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes down to the spiritual aspect, I do believe in it because it even got to a point where my track listing, because you notice it's 14 tracks,
Right.
that wasn't on accident. It was strategic because 7 and 7 in Supreme Mathematics, 7 in both sides is it's hold on. I know this one. I know this one. Just looking it up real quick. Hold on.
No, that's fine.
Like, you know about 5%, right?
Yeah, I am aware.
Okay. Oh, there we go. 7 is God.
Hmm.
7, like the number 7 is God.
Hmm.
So I wanted to channel God twice, but when you get into numerology and stuff like that, you got to add, those last 2 numbers. So it's 14 tracks. It's 1 and 4. That will equal 5, and 5 is power. So I put a lot of thought into those.
So, you're kind of like making all of these different nods, at least in this conversation, to these, different spiritual nominations. Do you feel personally the pressure to, you're talking about like picking in a way. Do you feel the pressure personally to move yourself in kind of a focused way into one single lane there? Or do you feel like your spiritual mind or sort of point of view now and ongoing into the future is maybe more abstract or sort of just like open to, whatever you're kind of coming across?
It's kind of like martial arts. You got to pick the base first. You pick what you start with. So I would much rather start with, like, I have a good base because my mom was a Jehovah's Witness. And then there was years where I didn't even think about reading the Bible or praying and stuff like that, And then once I started like actually like praying and like getting into it and getting into the word, just off my mom, not even off a church or nothing like that. Not even like sitting there and reading the Bible, like just off my mom, just sending me scriptures and stuff like that. And it will pertain to something that day. Like, I don't feel too much of the pressure because like each of them is supposed to get you to a higher, you know what I'm saying? A higher place.
So when you're talking about base, you're not talking about like, I'm making this hard decision to go this way. You're talking about just sort of like experiences that you're gaining in terms of, different like theological perspectives.
Not even theological perspectives. Like, it is like the first thing, like it's like a base. Like it is like, all right, I want to be Muslim. This is my base, and this is what I got to stick with. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by base. Like, I'm Christian. This is what they say I can and cannot do. This is my base, and I just got to work off that. Like, a lot of the stuff is something you got to work off of to build a better connection with God, a better connection with a higher power.
And like, as of right now, as you're on this record referencing things like, getting your spirit right per se, what do you feel like across this chapter of your life right now that you needed to do or change or accomplish in terms of like, maybe some like material specific changes, like in order to get to that spot where you feel more comfortable with that?
I just needed to stop seeking validation from people. I needed to know that everybody's feelings are in consideration. I need to not treat women the way, like objects and treat them like human beings. I needed to work within myself to not go back to doing the same patterns that I was doing. There's like so many things that I want to do because it's just like, over time I was having these problems and I never faced them for real. You know what I'm saying? Stop enabling people to treat you fucked up. Like, that's another thing. So all these things ended up bleeding on record. And then when it just comes down to like society that's out of my control, it's how do I combat that? What can I learn? How can I be better? How can I protect the people that's in my household and outside of that? And how can I get people to unify in a way? Henceforth, why I created ULT in the first place.
As far as like the personal stuff that you're opening up about on this record, and again, we've talked about things before that you've gone through or dealt with, and have obviously like put into your music. But like right off the bat on the record, you're making like reference to experience that you've had with having suffered abuse, for example, and that's just really like the tip of the iceberg in terms of like what you lace into this album. Like, was there anything going through it that you had to pause and you're like, do I want to put this here? Like, or was there, an internal struggle to be as open as you are on this record? Because this is certainly like your most exposed, project to date for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I did Melt Session 1, I didn't play that song for months. Like, I didn't want to play it for anybody. Like, I played it for people and I didn't even want to play it for my own girl. Like, because I was going through all that, you know what I'm saying? When she heard it, she liked it. But it was just me like pretty much like giving out what I was going through, you know what I'm saying? And had to make it like just pretty much easier for people to understand than just making a story up.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about going back to 2018 when you were starting to conceptualize the album and sort of like what you wanted to accomplish with it. Was there anything personal around this time that struck you or sort of hit you? Was it like, what was the point at which you had either maybe a rock bottom experience or a realization where you were like, I'm not where I want to be? Was it some experience
it was
or
in
something?
2019.
Yeah.
It was in 2019 because in 2019 I didn't want to be here no more. Like I just wanted to just check out. Like I didn't want to be here. Like I wanted to kill myself at that point. And then that's what caused me to go into therapy in the first place. But I didn't take therapy serious until like lockdown. You know what I'm saying? And that was just like a point in my life where I felt like was super low because there was so much stuff that I had to unpack that I never unpacked before. And I just went through like a mental breakdown. Like you have all this success, but you can't enjoy it because you're depressed.
And, in 2019, like what would you say personally was kind of like, again, driving that? Because as you just said, like to anybody looking from the outside, 2019 was like a pretty high point for you. Everybody was loving it.
It was just all the stuff that I was indulging in, like, you know what I'm saying? Alcohol, I was drinking a lot. Random women every now and again. I just felt empty. Like I felt like it went from innocent fun to guilty pleasures in a way. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of those guilty pleasures, it just like, I just felt empty. I didn't feel like I had a soul. I felt like I was soulless at a point in my life, and excuse me. It just all that shit just like it just builds up over time, and you just don't know who to talk to at that point because you don't feel like anybody understands that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like even like coming out with saying I got abused as a child, like that shit still hurts me to this day, and I gotta fight through that. Like, excuse me, I'm sorry, man. This is like
no, you're good.
It's just like a lot of shit that I gotta deal with, and I just can't fathom it. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't take it anymore.
So you hit a point that, you hit either a breaking point or a moment where, with what you were doing, all the indulging that you're talking about, you were kind of digging and digging and digging and reaching a point where you weren't really getting anything out of it, or maybe getting out of it what you used to. It was almost like, you were, not to put words in your mouth, but like, it was kind of diminishing returns on it over and over and over, and you were less and less fulfilled by it.
I was becoming an addict, which I eventually became.
And again, that realization is kind of what caused that reset in a way.
Yeah. So I got to work through all this. Like everything I'm going through, I got to work through all that.
And, you, again, you like, and this is obviously a very personal thing as well, but like, just for everybody who I think in chat, because there's a lot of people responding to what you're saying. And, I think like, obviously you're saying a lot of what you're saying on this record to kind of like lend these ideas to people listening so that they could be more aware of their own struggles and what they're also going through. But just to kind of like put a pin in this to illustrate the significance of what this may mean in this chapter that you're talking about, like talk a little about going into therapy and how that's kind of been an experience for you so far, and like what it meant to walk in there. And like you said, maybe at first think like, I'm not taking this seriously, or this isn't really.
Yeah, I wasn't taking it serious. And then it's just like, sorry to cut you off, but I wasn't taking it serious at first because it's just like, I'm here telling a stranger my problems. I don't know how this shit works. I thought you get it out one time and that's it. Right. But when you go into therapy and then over time, when you keep going and keep going, you start realizing like your patterns. You start realizing like steps that will get you in trouble. You start realizing stuff that you weren't not aware of. And you then, on top of that, you realize you don't make mistakes. You make bad choices. You know what I'm saying? And then it's all a realization just for you to get better at what you have a problem with. And I do holistic therapy. I don't do therapy where you got to get drugs and whatever the case may be. I'm not like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's therapy helped me take accountability for my actions. You know what I'm saying?
And
All of them.
and what would you say was like the wall that you needed to get past in order to actually understand that? Because you talk about there being this point where you were, just kind of getting it out, but at what actually brought you to that realization,
The therapist kept holding a mirror up to me. And I'm not saying like a literal mirror, but she kept holding this metaphorical mirror up at me. And I had to look at myself and see everything I was doing.
Right. And, I've had plenty of therapy experiences myself. Did you have to switch therapists at any time to like get what you felt like you needed?
No, I keep one therapist.
Okay.
Like, I don't need to backtrack and just do that over time. I'm gonna stick with one person, you know what I'm saying? And even this person is starting to get me and starting to understand what I need to do. So.
Nice. And, personally within your own family, like what have these changes for you meant in terms of like your dynamics with your relatives? Because, some of the stuff that you're talking about on this record connects very obviously and very, very directly to people who are incredibly close to you. Have these realizations or these changes in you resulted in you having to have like conversations with your friends and your family about like past experiences or stuff that happened to you, just to kind of like set the record straight and like create understanding?
Yeah, my peoples, my parents, my brothers, like they're very understanding. And I talk to them about what I go through. It may not be everything, but when I do talk to them, like, I let them know what's up. It helped me like stand my ground with a lot of things, because I let a lot of things slide because I didn't know the right words or what to say. And then it'll just come out in a barrage, maybe a barrage of words, a barrage of punches. It'll just come out in those ways, But now I'm at a point where I could just talk about my problems because I know how to say them.
And, you've also talked about on this record in terms of like, friends that have sort of, or the relationship kind of souring there. Like as a result of this process, were there people who you had to separate from because they couldn't kind of be on the other side with you in terms of like the changes that you were making?
Yeah, I had to separate from a good friend for a while because we wasn't seeing eye to eye. I had to separate from another friend of mine because they was on some shit that I couldn't get with. You know what I'm saying? And I had to separate from another friend because I know if we would have, stayed being friends, we both would have been hating each other till this day. So, of course, I had to step back from people in order for me to be the best me, in order for me to like understand like they need to live their life also.
And, were there some changes that with obviously like the shift in delivery and narrative that you brought on this record, when you went to write these songs, like were there shifts in your lyrical approach that you needed to change, knowing that like you're not going to be, it's not going to be, it's not going to be, taboo. It's not going to be, like an alt type track. You know what I mean? Did you have to sort of like rewire that lyrical side of your brain to sort of like put yourself in that place where you could put these songs together narratively?
I mean, yeah, I had to not rewire my brain. It was just like my penmanship had to be top tier. It had to be better than what I was already doing. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't have lines like just previous stuff that you heard before, like fuck a Pop-Tart, we carry toasters for real. Like that shit's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like it can't.
It is funny though.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's just like I can't have another Jizz Boss make a drink the cum sauce. Like right. I wrote that shit when I was 19, and that's fucking stupid. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't believe I wrote that shit, to be honest with you. So it was just like I couldn't have lines like that anymore because all eyes are on me. And whenever I do a project or do an album, I know people are going to tune in. People are more excited for my albums and that body of work than my actual songs that I come out with.
No, it's true. And, I think that's because the fans have kind of gotten used to, regardless of how the singles pan out, when we hear the entire record, like there's a whole story, there's a whole painting being, brought together there that you don't really, you know, if you come out with a song and maybe people like it, maybe people don't, but either way, you just have one part of the elephant, you know what I mean? And you're in a dark room and, you know, the light doesn't come on and you don't see that it's an elephant until the whole album is out. And you're like, oh, okay, I see this, you know, now I see every part of it.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy. My fans look forward to my album like it's a single, like it's like the best single in the world. And it hits every time because I put a lot of thought and a lot of stuff that I process within my albums.
You know, let me ask you about some of the, you know, production, well, not production, but some of the feature choices that you made on this record. You know, for one, I was pretty excited to, or, you know, surprised, and then also just like happy to hear how it kind of panned out creatively, but surprised to see TPain in the mix on the record. Like, how did you guys link up, and like what was, and I'm sure you have connections with a lot of people in the industry, but what was it about that track that you were like, he would work best here, he would fit here, he needs to be here?
Well, me and TPain met in Bonnaroo in 2018, and then me and him was just cracking jokes with each other backstage. He liked my cipher and like the stuff I was doing, and of course I grew up listening to TPain, Tallahassee Pain, you know what I'm saying, from Florida. So him and Adam Levant was like cracking jokes backstage and shit, and it was like probably one of the funniest things that you'll ever see in your life, because TPain's hella funny, Adam Levant from Workaholics, he's hella funny. So it was just cool talking about, you know what I'm saying, just cool just seeing them talk about people at the festival. TPain goes on stage, he performs right after me, and you know, we just linked up from there, and then we just been cool ever since. Then when I got him on Troubles, I didn't initially want him on Troubles at first. What happened was I sent them 2 songs. I sent them Worst Come to Worst and Troubles in 2020. This is when the album was in its pre-stages, and I just wanted some feedback on what he thought. And he liked both of them. He was trying to get me to, you know, give them the 2 different blog sites. And I was just like, nah, you know, it's a different time, you know? And then a year later, in 2021, my manager was like, yo, we're going to send this to TPain. And I was like, all right, cool. You know, thinking like it probably won't happen. And TPain hits me when I'm going to Muay Thai class. He's like, yo. And I'm like, yo, but nothing. Like, I didn't get a text back, nothing. The next day, I go to Power's house and we're hanging out and we're in the studio. Powers, what happened? Not Powers, but TPain texts me while I was at Power's house, and he sends me a Dropbox link, and it had Troubles in it. So I play it, and then his verse comes on, and I'm like, oh shit. And if you hear those a couple bars he took from the original Troubles, like, because in the original one, I was like, pool full of money, I'm gonna drown in it. Dead president, this is what I found in it. You know what I'm saying? And then even on the last bar, like, end up on the news, play around with it. And then when you hear TPain's version, I can't swim, I got a bullet, and I'm gonna drown in it. Drunk underwater, we going clown fishing. I mean, y'all only gonna announce the shit. The chopper may be beautiful music, play around. Like, he took those lines that I did and made it better. It was just crazy. And I got self-conscious. I was like, damn, should I redo my verse? And then everybody's like, no. That's how the song's supposed to be. So I'm like, all right, you know, maybe I am self-conscious. Plus, I have a whole album of me just rapping, just going off. So It's cool.
Right.
And that's how that happened.
Okay. Thank you. I also wanted to ask you about, you know, Ain't No Way. I mean, considering like how many people you bring into that track, it's just like such a massive experience. You know,
to tell you the truth, that song wasn't even supposed to be on this project. But it fit the project so much, it had to be on the project. And the way that track came about was I went to the studio for a Josiah session because my homie Sean K told me to come through, and Josiah was, you know, recording there and he was hanging out there. So I'm like, all right, cool. I go in a room, you know what I'm saying, they're working on the song, which will eventually become Art of War. And, you know, he's already recorded in there, and I do the intro like, this type of shit make you curse up newborn baby. Like, that shit, like, and he was like, you did the intro, you might as well be on the song and shit, you know what I'm saying? And at first I wasn't going to. And then I was like, you know what, he has a point. So I went to go write my verse. I walked out the room, sat on the couch, and in the studio, it's like 3 studios in there, right? So Rico Nasty is right next door to Josiah's room, but they don't know they're both there at the same time. She gets out her room. There's nobody in her room except her engineer, and I think her cameraman. She comes out. She goes to another room, starts talking. And I look up because the room that she was going to was right next to me, and I'm on the couch, just like this one. So I'm like, Rico, Rico, Rico. I called her name like 3 times. She looks down finally. And she's like, oh shit, what's up, Denzel? And I was like, yo, what's up, Rico? How you been? She was like, I've been doing good, this, that, and the third. And I was like, oh, are you familiar with Josiah? And she was like, yeah, I know Josiah, this, that, and the third. So we go to Josiah's room, and then, they rekindle whatever relationship they had, like friendship. And we talking, and we was talking about getting her on Art of War along with me, And she was like, okay, cool. I'm down to be on Art of War, but let's record in my room. There's nobody in my room. So we go over there, and automatically she calls Jid. She was like, Jid's in town.
Right.
Because Jid was just there in town for some reason. She calls Jid. Jid says, yo, I'm going to pull up. Sean K calls Powers, and Powers like, oh, for real? Okay, I'm going to pull up. Jid comes there. Black is with him. And also Kitty Cash, who does the interlude, like What You Really Saying on the track Ain't No Way. So all 3 of them are there. Power shows up, right? And then Buddy eventually comes, but he comes later on. We get Art of War done first. And then we were scrolling through beats. And I just remember like telling Powers, like, yo, you got to play him that shit that you played me. Because this was right after Powers did Zatoichi. And Powers just has a whole bunch of beats where they were like super weird, but they worked. Like they worked together. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yo, you got to play him that shit. You be playing me. Like, you got to play him that shit. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you know what I'm talking about, them weird ass beats. Go play him those weird ass beats you be making. Because he doesn't play those for people, but he play them for me. And because, everybody likes the simple shit. Me, I was like, no, give me up the weirdest beats you got. You know what I'm saying? I was like, play him that shit. So he plays some Ain't No Way. He plays them the beat. And it starts off turn, and then it goes into this boom bappy type of beat. And it was like, oh shit. Everybody loves it. Everybody starts freestyling. Josiah starts jumping on the couch. He was like, ain't no way, ain't no way, ain't no way. So he's just like, so Jid was like, yo, you need to go lay that down. So he goes in the studio, lay down the Ain't No Way part, tells Rico start writing. Then he's talking to Black. He's like, Black, we need a hook for this.
Right.
Jid's directing everything, by the way, drunk as hell. Well, he's not drunk as hell, but he was tipsy. So he was like, tipsy. Yo, so Black go in there, and he was like, make the chorus. So that's when Black goes in, ain't no way niggas gonna doubt me after this. Ain't no way I've been here this long and still ain't rich. He's just started going off, right? And it's like before Josiah part come on. And then after Josiah's part, he tells Rico to do the same thing, do the chant with him. And then Rico does her verse right after, like, ain't no way I can fake what bitches smiling in my face gonna take when I make. Too bad I do this shit with grace. You know what I'm saying? So she's going off. And then, after she does her verse, he looks at me. He's like, Denzel, what part you want? And I was like, look, man, long as I get on this motherfucker, I'm straight. You know what I'm saying? So he does his verse, and initially me and him was gonna share a verse. It was gonna be 8 and 8. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it was originally. So the bars that was I could turn your sympathies to symphonies, and I could send you up the same day you try to send for me. That's where it actually ended in the original Ain't No Way, because me and him shared a verse, and we was gonna give the song to Rico. So Jid does his part. He asked me what I got, and I started spitting it to him. He was like, "That's nice. Go in there. Go right in after me." And then Buddy shows up. Buddy starts singing on the ending. Buddy started singing in Jid's part. They were singing together, like him, Black, Jid. They were singing together in that one little part. And that's how Ain't No Way turned out. When Rico decided not to get Ain't No Way, not to have Ain't No Way, the second option was Powers. We're going to give it to Powers now. Give it for his project. But I think Powers couldn't clear everybody. You know what I'm saying? So the last resort was me. I ended up getting the track. We go to Electric Lady because a lot of the album was inspired by Soul Aquarium stuff. And I was so animated. Like, if I was going to do anything at any outside studio, then where I was recording at, it has to be Electric Lady. It has to, all that energy has to go. All the energy that Erykah Badu, Common, the Roots, and just, D'Angelo, all of them, what they was making there, that energy had to be on my record. I was not having it. I was just like, we got to do this at Electric Lady. If we're going to mix this album, mix it at Electric Lady. That's the place I wanted to be mixed at, you know? And then we get there. Me and Robert Glass were already working together, right? So they was like, yo, you got to add more to your verse since we're going to use it for the album. So I was like, all right, cool. And then I just started adding more to my verse, like, niggas be getting famous off of infamy. Infiltrate the industry when using them like the right and hit. At first, they used to fight the shit, you know? So I started writing, and then I recorded it there. So that's where I finished my verse. I finished that little part at Electric Lady, and then Robert came in and started playing keys on the second part. And that's how Ain't No Way was born.
Holy shit. I mean, I could see, you know, the first thing that you said, I was wondering, because you said like it wasn't supposed to be on the record or da 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 da, and now that you kind of tell that whole story, I could see why. Because like, you know, everything else on the record narratively is so premeditated and like, you know, came from this grand plan that you had. But this album, this song is like as a result of this really interesting, just by chance experience. Everybody was in the same place at the same time. The stars aligned. Everybody just happened to like put in, you know, everybody just had perfect input at the perfect time. And, you know, it just kind of came together as it was. And it's sort of, I don't know, it says something thinking about what you've been saying about this record and the changes that you underwent to kind of get to the point where you are now to put this album out. But then there are these really pivotal moments and at least elements of the album that, despite all your planning, are happening just by chance in a way.
Right.
Right. And
a lot of this stuff was by chance. Even X-Wing was by chance. Every song on here has a story.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Like,
no, I mean, literally from what you're saying on it, for sure.
Yeah. Like even the track X-Wing itself. That beat was came from Boy Wonder because I went to go work with Hit Boy that day. And I played him the pre-album and he loved it. And he gave us some beats, but he was running around. I guess this is when him and Nas was working on King Disease 2.
Right.
So this is like fresh out the Grammy. Nas shows up, you know, goes do his thing. I went to go make a call outside and Boy Wonder was across the street. And if for those that don't know who Boy Wonder is, he does a lot of stuff for Drake, Kendrick Lamar, you know, he's like
my fans have heard a lot of Boy Wonder beats, they know.
Yeah, okay, cool. Long as they know. But he looked at me, I looked at him, he gave me a head nod, I gave him a head nod. He comes across the street while I'm getting off the phone. And he was like, what's up, man? I'm Boy Wonder. And I'm just like, yo, I know who you are. I just don't know what you look like. I never knew what he looked like. Right. And he was like, that's why I'm outside taking pictures, because that's what he was doing. And then he was like, yo, I'm going to come to your session and I'm going to fuck with you. So I was like, all right, cool. I go to my session and stuff like that. He didn't even hear the album. So I ended up getting a beat for X-Wing because he gave me a flash drive full of beats. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, okay, I'm finna check them out. So we ended up, like, I gave him to Nate. Nate is my engineer. So if y'all ever, you know, if Nate ever see this, make sure y'all say congratulations because, like, bro, he was there throughout everything, like, risking everything just to record this album. So he's the real MVP. So Boy wanted to give me beats. I gave him to Nate. Nate puts them on his computer, and then he ends up sending them to me. And keep in mind, Boy Wonder didn't hear the album at all.
Right.
But all the beats somewhat fit the album. And then I was at this point in time where I was working on the album, and I was like, okay, I got all the substance, but I don't have anything that people could just, like, you know what I'm saying? Just, you feel me? That's where the inspiration from Kanye West's Graduation came in, because I said, you know, it's like Soul Aquarium's albums with a sprinkle of Kanye West's Graduation.
Right.
So when I did, when I heard the X-Wing beat, it was so beautiful. It started off like slow and everything, and then as soon as the bass kicked in, I was like, that's when I started just going around my house, like listening to it and stuff like that. And then the hook came to me first. It was like, X-Wing, just on to the next thing. And then I didn't know what I was going to say after that. I just know it's like, like, that's how it sounded before I did the song. So I go to the studio, but Nate wasn't there. Nate had to go out of town for something. But I was like, damn, I really got to record this. So I go in. I asked my homie Hector, who was working at the studio, like, can you record me? He was like, for sure. go in there. He hooked it up and all and everything. I did the verses, and then I did that hook. It was like, I wanna go on an X-wing on this, on to the next thing. But when I did it initially, it was like, I don't want a car, I want an X-wing. I'm just on to the next thing. And then I was like, man, that shit don't sound right because I'm pronouncing everything. So I kind of took the mumble rap approach, and I was just like, let me try it this way. Because I tried it the other way before, but I was like, let me try it this way. I wanna go on the X-wing, I'm just on to the next thing. One over there, not the best thing. Down my neck. Like all that was strategic, including the auto tune. Mm. Like everything on that track was initially like, boom, like this is what I'm gonna do. And then he recorded everything. Then he did his own mix, and then we gave it to Nate, and Nate just did everything else. And it was just like, damn, this song is so good. And then I sent it to my managers, and it's like, bro, this could be a single, but where would this fit on the album? And I was like, this is going to fit on the album. I don't know how, but that's the sonics of it fit. I just needed to have more stuff like that. And then eventually Ain't No Way ended up making the album. Sun Zero ended up making the album, and Troubles was already on the album. Right. And the last also fit that same type of vibe because of the way the beat sounded.
You know, let me look, you've devoted an hour to this conversation already. I greatly appreciate the fact that you've done that and your time. And you know, people in chat are absolutely fucking loving the record. And you've told us so much about it. You know, I don't want to steal any more of your time away. I want to ask you before you go, you know, given like how habitually you tend to plan things out and conceptualize things into, you know, the future, are you already like planning your next move or thinking about what, you know, new material from you may look like, you know, after this record?
Yeah, there's one genre that I have yet to talk about. Mm-hmm. Only one. There's only one subject that I have yet to talk about. Mm-hmm. That's love. Mm-hmm. Like if people be like, yo, do a rock record, you're just going to put me in the box that I was struggling to get out of. Right. You're putting me deeper into it. Right. I obviously can do it, but I don't have the intelligence to do it as of yet.
People love that Rage cover.
Yeah, that's why they wanted me to do a rock, you know what I'm saying? Do a rock album, a whole metal record, album. Yeah. Yeah, but nah, at least not now. Yeah. I'll think about it. But when the time there's one subject that I haven't like talked about. I did all the Rage stuff. I did the experimental stuff. I did the concept stuff. It's just like one subject I never got to talk about, and that's love. Never got to talk about love before. Like I want to experience. Like I'm already in a relationship, but I have to experience it for real. Well, you know what I'm saying? Love in all aspects, not just one thing.
Well, I'm saying pretty cut and dry. You've spelled it out. I mean, you know, thank you for giving us another view into the future.
Oh, thank you. Oh, can I ask you something?
What?
Nah, you know what? Never mind. I don't even want to ask you. I think the chat is already asking you right now.
We had a good conversation.
Yeah, just leave it at that.
Just leave it at that. We had a great conversation. Yeah. All right. I will catch you on the other side. And I'm glad that you're doing well, and it's great to see you doing well.
Thank you.
And you know, and you know, I think you should be, but do you feel proud of this record?
Hell yeah.
Good.
This is the only record I feel like I didn't have to like put any like, you know what I'm saying, filler tracks in.
Sure.
Everything was on purpose. Like the whole thing. Including Zatoichi, which you didn't like. But everything is on purpose.
But again, you know, it's like the feeling that way, you deserve that. Because, you know, not just with this record, but like you've been doing this a really long time, and you've earned a successful career off of it. And you're a standout, instantly recognizable artist as a result of all of it, and nobody can take that away from you.
No. Not at all.
Good for you. And, you know, chat's really proud of you too.
Well, tell them I said what's up, and tell them I said thank you. Well, they probably heard me already, but thank y'all.
All right. Have a good night, man.
You too, man.
All right. Thank you. Bye.